Alright guys, so today we are going to be going over the Blossom Gel or the Blooming Gel. That's of course, like I've always told you, every company comes up with their own name, but Blooming Gel is what you'll call or hear it called most frequently. And commonly. Okay, so pretty much it's very similar to top coat or a clear coat. Okay, this particular one, it has a pretty good brush to it, but for the most part, you don't even know the difference if you're just looking at it, if it's regular coat, clear coat, or blooming gel. Okay, it does have a little bit of a thicker consistency, but other than that, you really can't tell. So my supplies that I have, I went ahead and took my nail stick, I buffed it, I put the Anself 009 pink color on it, so that it looks more white on the camera, but that's there. Did do my base coat, have my brushes, my dotting tool, and then I have my light. Okay, so I have the base color that I want. I'm going to be working with a deep eggplant color. This is the 013, okay, and the blooming gel, okay, for the designs. So for this particular pot, it's a brand new pot. So the last video I shared with you about the little foil, okay, so this, let's say this just came in, right, it's sealed. So what you can do is you can take a little X-Acto knife, or you can pull on it and use your dotting tool to peel off the edge. Only open half of the pot and fold it over like so. Now remember, when you touch the gel and you transfer it to your gloves or your fingers, you have to take a wipe and wipe it off. If not, this will make everything sticky. Anything you touch will become sticky, okay? So keep that in mind, and especially when you're wearing gloves and working with gloves on, because it's hard to tell when there is something sticky on your glove because you can't feel it. So if you ever rub your hands together and you hear something kind of grasp onto your glove, then that's probably because it's sticky. But anyway, so instead of the finger, you can use a spatula. You can use the tip of your brush or just use the dotting tool, and you're gonna fold over on the edges. You're gonna fold over the foil. Okay. Now you can take the back end of your brush and mix it, or a needle or a T-pin to mix the gel to make sure that any clear color or any other colors are correctly mixed in here, especially if it's been sitting for a while. You don't have to, but you can. Sometimes the colors do separate after time. Okay, so when you're working with pots, it's good to do this because then you can wipe off the brush. Instead of wiping it on the lid or the neck of the bottle, you can, or the outer rim, you can wipe it off on the actual foil. And so the foil is what will get dirty, and when you're done, just fold it over and close it, and half of the bottle or container is still sealed, so it's less likely to spill out. Okay, so that is definitely something that will help save your product from going all over the place and looking crazy. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do just a basic marbling technique. So we're going to apply our blooming gel. Okay, we're not going to be very sparingly using the product, but we're not going to go overboard. So we're going to just apply. This brush is pretty good because it spreads well. Okay, and once the gel is there, we're going to come through and you can apply your product. And with time, you're going to see that it will begin to spread. Now you can help it spread by moving it around, should you choose, with a brush or your tool, or you can just let it do its thing. Now, just like when we learn the marbling technique, okay, you can push or pull one color into another. That would absolutely just be your choice and what kind of design that you're looking for or looking to create. You can add two different colors. Right now I'm only using the purple color, the violet color, but you can add how many ever colors you desire to create the look that you are going for. You don't have to stick to just one, okay? So when you're working with this, you can see it starting to spread there. It's a little difficult to see it on the camera. This camera's a little blurry, but you'll see some of the white or the clear pigment of the blooming gel mix into the violet and the violet mixing into the clear, and it definitely has begun to spread. So that's one basic way. You can do leaves, you can do flowers, you can do some of the marbling. You can come through and mix it more. So I'm going to come through and just distort it. And as you do so, you are in part diluting some of the pigment because you are mixing it with the clear. And so the blooming gel is going to allow the color that you place on top of the blooming gel to spread, and that's why they call it blooming gel. And then you can see there the design starting to come together. Okay, so that's one way that you could do a blooming gel design. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this here and show you the next design. So I'm going to apply my blooming gel. Now the one of the more common ones that you're going to see is someone create a rose. So when you're doing your rose, you want to make sure we use plenty. You want to move your nail tip around using the light that shines on it as a guide. You want to make sure that you don't leave any blank spots. So you're going to take and you're going to do a rose. So you're going to drop down a bead. And then you're going to do C-sections around that bead. This gel seems to be a little bit more thick. And just in doing so, it is going to allow the product to move. You can see it starting to spread. Whoops. Do also, though, keep in mind that it is gel. And like I've said before, gel will continue to spread until you put it in the light. So if you're doing your design and you just put a whole lot of product in it, okay, do know that it will continue to spread, and it's only going to spread out into the cuticle area. And I'm only dabbing to pick up a little bit. It's going to spread out into the cuticle area, and it's going to spread into the nail walls. So, and the tip corners of your design. So you can always go back and make any adjustments that you like. But you need to make sure that as you're, and here's your rose, you need to make sure that as you're doing the design, you're moving quickly and you're paying attention. If you're turning the nail sideways, you're paying attention to the corners on the tip and onto the side cuticle area. If you're seeing that your design is starting to get clumpy, then you need to pull that product off with a brush or with your tool, whichever tool you're using, because if you put it in the light, like into the light like that, it's going to have that bump. Whoops, I touched it. It's going to have the bump. So you have to be very careful about that. Okay, so that is your rose design, and again, it's just one dot, and you're doing C-sections all the way around. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off, and then I'm going to come through and show you how to do. And I apologize, it's not such a clear picture here. I'm going to do the snake skin. We're going to come through and we're going to apply. Now again, because it's clear, you want to make sure that you really see that you've applied the blooming gel all through the nail. You want to make sure that with the light as you're turning it, you can see that it's full coverage and you don't leave any empty spots. So with this, you can do, we'll start here. And you can just do dots. Okay, and as the product is, you can do dots, you can do triangles, you can do rectangles or squares. It depends on what kind of scales you want to do. Depending on the animal that you're working on, it can be a very small scale, it can be a bigger scale. You can use a brush to deposit your product. That's just, you know, whatever you feel most comfortable. Some people work with toothpicks and they feel comfortable with toothpicks, and that's okay. Some people prefer working with only brushes, and that's all right as well. It just, again, it depends on the person and what the person prefers to work with, what the artist prefers to work with. And there's no right or wrong. Everybody has learns different ways and has a preference on how they're going to use their techniques that they've learned. So it doesn't mean that one person is right or the other is wrong. It simply means that, you know, they just choose one design over the other, or one technique over the other, and that, or what method over the other, and that's okay too. Okay. So as you're applying your application of your products, you're seeing that you're going to have this particular technique that allows the product to spread. Okay, so as you're applying the product, now you can do giraffes, you can do a tortoise shell, you can do, if you wanted to do um, kind of like a alligator crocodile type of a scale, if you want to do a snake scale, so you can do it. And so there's different shapes that I've created here, the bigger ones, and then the more like square, angled, the round, and the smaller circles. So any one of these designs, you just have to make sure you continue the pattern all the way through. If not, it doesn't look like anything, obviously, but you want to make sure that the consistency is not too crazy perfect, no matter what kind of scale that you're trying to do on which whatever animal you're trying to technique you're trying to accomplish. But you want to make sure that you're consistent all the way through. Okay, so perfect example. So the bigger scales for the bigger reptiles, okay, the smaller scales for the different types of snake type skin. If you're not consistent in your design all the way through, okay, you're not going to, your design isn't going to come across. So one other thing to think about or to focus on as you're doing this and you're trying to be consistent all the way through, the nail size and the curve of the nail. So the nail on the cuticle area is going to have more of a curve to it here, and the nail over on the tip, let's say you do a square nail, then you're going to have more flat or more wide space at the tip. If you're doing a stiletto, then that'll be opposite. Maybe the cuticle area is thinner or wider, and then you're going to have a point at the tip. So when you're doing your application, regardless of what kind of scale that you're trying to accomplish, do keep in mind and understand that you have to be consistent in the shape, but it's the size that needs to change. So if at the tip of that stiletto nail, you're trying to create a snake skin or yeah, a very small snake reptilian type of skin scale, then you need to have the small circles, which my circles are now blending into a line, but you need to have very small circles at the tip. As you're going to the middle, where the almond, the apex of the almond is, then you want to make sure that you have a bigger, wider shape. whatever geometric shape that you're using. Now, purposefully, I've trying to can make conversation to so that you can see real time how if you're taking a long time and doing your application, now you can see every one of my designs are now not what they originally were. So my big giraffe style scale, or it's not even a scale, but just design down here, it's one big old log, right? And then my top my squares here blended with my rectangle. And then because I have so much product, you'll notice on the sides of my nails, now my designs are coming together. And if I wish I could really show you, but here, and I'm not sure if you can really see it on camera, but I can see my bump here of my excess product. Okay, and then you can see this is coming down because I've been holding the nail vertically this way. So remember, it's honey. So as I'm talking, okay, as I'm explaining this, I'm holding my nail this direction. A lot of the times we hold the client's finger and it's not straight. It's downward. So when it's downward or upward, that gel, like I said, the honey will continue. The product will continue to spread, and gravity is going to do what gravity does and pull it down. So because I've been holding the nail tip as I've been explaining that vertically down or diagonally down, and you can probably see do you see that chunk right there? Yep, that's all the product that's coming down there. And if I look at it this way, on the side now I can really see, you can see the dip right here, and you can see the little curve right there. So as I'm holding it down, my product, my colors are blending into each other more than I wanted to. Okay, so that probably was a good 5 minutes. And look, now look at my design compared to how it was at the beginning. Okay, so like I said, when you are creating a design with gel, it doesn't matter if it's spider gel, if it's the pot gels, if it's the blooming gel, especially a blooming gel, because the blooming gel makes the color spread even more so than the regular clear coat. But your regular gels and whatnot, if you have a design that you create on the nail and you love the way it looks, immediately put it into your light so you can freeze it that way. After you freeze it, come back and finish the design. Even if it takes you a little bit longer at the beginning when you're starting out to do the design, you do a design or a row and you freeze it. You cure it. You cook it or you bake it, whatever. People call different things, but you cure it. Bring it back out and then do the next row and cure it and bring it back out. If that's what's gonna ensure your design to come out the best, then do that. Don't try to do one whole nail design and here I am, what is it, like 6-7 minutes later, look at my design now. So even more so, you can really see this coming down. You can really see the designs drooping, okay? And now when I turn it sideways, I can really see the bump on my nail tip here. But you can see that lump right there. Okay, so it's very important because afterwards, if you don't remove with alcohol in a brush, if you don't remove around the cuticle and side nail wall areas or those tips there, the client is going to have that on their skin and see those bumps. Okay, so definitely not going to be a happy client. And even if I look at it this way, you can totally see the dip in the nail. And I'm not sure if you can even see it on the camera, but you can definitely see the dip there. All right, so keeping that in mind, let's continue. Okay, I'm gonna wipe that off. A lot of the times when your clients come in and they ask for gel polish application, and they do ask for nail art, just let them know ahead of time that it is going to take a little bit longer. Okay, it's going to take a little bit longer to do the gel application because you do have to go back and forth into the light. Okay, so let me go ahead and apply. Generous, but not too crazy. And now let me show you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take my smaller brush now. And let's The consistency of the gel is also going to make a huge difference. This gel is really stringy. It's going to make a huge difference in your application. Because if your gel is stringy, it's probably been dried out already. And if it's dried out, then it's not gonna spread very well. So that's definitely something that you want to keep in mind. How do your gels dry out? Your gels are going to dry out if you leave them open. Okay, if they're old, depending on the manufacturer's instructions or directions, they will tell you on the bottle, there's a little bottle that looks like a little jar that's open. It'll tell you on there how many months after the product has been open, can you use the product afterwards before it goes bad. So that you just, oops, that's just going to be manufacturer's directions there. Okay. Whoops. And the good thing about gels, I know you hear me saying the whoops, but the good thing about the gel is if you mess up, you just erase it, right? Just wipe it off and start over. And that's the good thing about the gels. All right, so this particular technique you'll see here is more like the real deal scales, but I want to share something with you specifically with this. Okay, let's say that I was doing my scale application, right? Okay. So, and I'm going to wipe my brush here. Okay, so let's take a look at this application. That's more my size of my application and my direction and my shapes. They're more consistent. So you can definitely see more of the scale-like design here. But here's what goes wrong. So you notice that I was dipping my brush. So the first one I did with the, which I didn't wipe off, but I did with my dotting tool, okay? So my dotting tool is very small and picks up a small amount of product. When I'm using a brush, the bigger brush that I use, the more product I'm going to pick up. So I always want to make sure that when I'm working with my gels, I'm using small brushes. There's for detail. Okay, remember it's honey. It's gonna continue to spread. Okay, so difference of the tool, the metal tool, the daughter to the brush. Look how much more product I picked up. Okay, I was able to be more consistent. But now you saw how the design was at the beginning. It looked more scaly or scale-like. But now look at it. Okay, so now you definitely can tell. So definitely you can see the split down the middle where there was no product. You were able to tell how the blooming gel was allowing the product to spread. But now you can clearly see, because in the middle it's lighter, where it's the apex, the top surface of the nail. And on the outside is darker, where it's the side where the gel has run off to the side. So if I turn it this way, see, you can see that chunk right there? Okay, and if I turn it here, let me see. Can you see the chunk there? You can definitely see on those corners. You can see here the unevenness, the bumps, okay? You can definitely see that there. So the product has, because I've been holding it this way as well, the product has been flowing because I've not cured it. I can definitely have a really nice design, but look, my spaces here are gone. It's like one big blob. Okay, here I have some spaces, but now there's a blob line on the side. And definitely when I rotate it, my light, you see how the shine of the ring light, you can see the oval, but it's kind of like wonky. It's kind of like bumpy because this here is a lump of product. If it were smooth and even, the ring light would be a perfect oval. But can you see there? See the bumps? Okay, so that's definitely, see the unevenness there. There's two different surfaces and there's a bump right there that makes two ring lights instead of one. Okay, so that's definitely a good way whenever you're working with your product, using the light above you as the reflection shines off of it to see the smoothness or consistency of your product is it's a nice tool to have. The ringlets are best than the just straight lines, because the ringlets, because they're a circle shape, they're going to allow you to see more of the consistency application than the regular flat, just one straight light. So anyway, so I just want to share that with you. When you use too much product with a brush, so I picked up the product with a brush, and I definitely used more than with the dotting tool. I used way too much. There was already a generous amount of the blooming gel, and then I came and I put an extra generous amount, and you notice I was kind of like kind of dropping it down. So that is just a lot of product on the nail. Okay, and if you don't cure it immediately, then what happens is it's just going to run into each other, right? And so that's definitely something that you want to just keep in mind. All right, so you can come in and you can try to fix your design, okay? But at some point, it might not be salvageable. It just because there's just too much product on the actual design. Now, you can use this to create a bump and a texture on the nail if that's what you are going for. You can definitely make a textured nail. We've seen that a lot. It's like a 3D gel nail with just the regular gel polish, but that's, you know, just technique wise, it's something that, you know, is out there but not very commonly done. Okay, you can also mix the blooming gel and any gel together to dilute the color, but that's not, I know there was a question one of the students had asked, but it's not something that's commonly done, but you can do it to kind of make it a little bit more of a lighter color. Okay, so that is it. So you can kind of see here the dark here, see how it's coming down. So all of this is excess product. I mean, it's just dripping off of the nail tip. Okay, and so you can see here the cuticle area. That was just a lot of product that was on the nail. And so just keep in mind your brushes whenever you're working with gel. Use gel art, use small brushes. Okay, and so that is how you use the blooming gel. Marbling techniques, things of the sort. You can all, there's so many tie dyes. Tie dyes when you use several colors of the different gel pots, or just the gel polishes. You can do different circles, like a target dot, and then do a tie-dye from there. Streak it out like we did the marbling technique, and it looks really cool. All right, so that is your blooming gel. Thanks so much for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know.